Have you spent a significant amount of time living outside your passport country during your developmental years? Do you come from an expat, military, diplomat, missionary, or international business family background? If so, then this podcast is for you.
Welcome to the TCK Research Podcast, where we discuss the current state of research on third culture kids, cross-culture kids, expat families, and international life in general.
My name is Andrea Schmidt, and I've been an expat for over 30 years, having lived in a total of 9 countries. I'm a coach for TCK girls, and I'm currently completing my master's degree in psychology.
And I'm Mathieu Gagnon, an adult third culture kid who grew up in 6 countries until the age of 15. And I'm now a professor of psychology in Ontario, Canada.
Every episode, we bring you a fascinating conversation with a leading researcher in the field.
If you're listening on YouTube or another platform, please subscribe to our channel. And if you enjoyed this episode, please press the thumbs up or like button, share it on your social media platforms, or send it to a friend.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can reach us at tckresearchpod@gmail.com.
Let's jump right in.
Enjoy the podcast.
Today's guest is Dr. Jemina Watstein. Dr. Watstein has been a national and international art educator for the past 20 years in France, the United States, Germany, and Thailand. She has a master's degree in fine art photography and a PhD in international educational leadership. Moreover, she believes in providing an inquiry-based learning experience to help fill students' internal toolboxes as they develop into their best selves. And today, we are talking about her recently completed doctoral thesis entitled The Power of the Visual Arts to Explore Who We Are and Where We Come From, a qualitative phenomenological study.
Welcome to today's podcast. Our guest today is Jemina Watstein. Welcome, Jemina. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. Hello. I'm
Jemina.
super excited.
Good. So are we.
Yes, we really are. This is the first podcast of our second year of the TCK Research Podcast, and we're all excited about all the future guests we're going to have. And you are sort of starting the new series.
Yes.
This is like Below Deck Season 2.
Below Deck Season. That's the second time you've used that reference on me, Andrea, and I don't actually know what that is.
Yeah. Okay, we are a research podcast. Can you please do your research?
I will.
So by the third time I mentioned this, you know what I'm talking about.
I promise the audience I will know what I will come up with my own below deck reference.
Yes, exactly.
In a future episode. But Jemina, do you know about below deck? Am I the only one who doesn't know?
I think you might be the only one in this group of 3.
Really? Must be a Canadian thing that we don't know
We
about.
outed you. Sorry.
Uh-oh. All right.
Okay, so we normally start off sharing where we're calling in from. I'm calling in from Cancun, Mexico. Jemina, what about you?
Calling in from Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan in the US.
Okay, and Mathieu?
Kingston, Ontario, Canada.
Perfect.
There you go.
Great. There we go.
International podcast once again.
Once again, 3 people, 3 countries.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So before we dive into the paper, into your thesis, Jemina, can you please share your TCK or expat story with us?
Yes, definitely. So I am a monocultural kid for sure, through and through. I grew up in Colorado until I was 17 was when I made my first move. But skipping several years, after I had been teaching for a couple of years in in Kalispell, Montana, my husband and I moved with our 18-month-old to Berlin, and I taught art in Berlin for 4 years. And then we moved back to Montana, and we were living in the middle of the state, and I was working for a school that had a 96% Native American population, and it was hard. It was,
Mhm.
I call that one of the, well, it was the hardest point in my career, I think. And while I was there, I thought, what am I going to do next? And I ended up enrolling into the doctorate program that I recently finished. And it was in the beginning of my classes that I was introduced to the term third culture kids. And I was
Mm.
fascinated. I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized, wait a minute, I'm raising two because I had had a second daughter living in Berlin. And
Mhm.
so I was hooked. And then from there, we ended up moving to Bangkok. And so I was
Mm.
teaching in Bangkok and I was getting pretty far along my program. And I could not figure out how to bring together third culture research and my background in art education. And I was just like,
Mhm.
so stumped. And then what ended up happening was there was a conference in Bangkok for international school teachers, and Ruth
Mhm.
Van Ryken was the
Mhm.
lead presenter.
Oh,
And
yes.
so I was like, oh, I have to go. I'd have to. And I did. And she presented her first presentation. And I walked up to her afterwards and I introduced myself and I told her my struggle about bringing art and TCKs together. And she walked over to her computer and she opened up her laptop and she said, here, look at these. And they were watercolor paintings that a friend of hers had made, and they were all very botanical and flowery, and they had
Mhm.
roots. But it was like
Oh, yeah.
rootlessness, right? And I saw that and I was like, oh,
Well,
wow, okay. And
Oh.
later that afternoon, she gave a second presentation and she put everybody into groups. And so I was sitting in
Mhm.
a group of about seven other people. And again, I shared my struggle with them. And one of the ladies who was a counselor, she said, you know, my son just graduated from the IB program and he did art as his concentration, and his entire body of work was on his identity. And it
ah, there
was
you go.
in there, I had my aha moment, and I was like, wow, this is what I'm going to do. And so
Yes.
from
Yeah.
there, it took me a long time to, bring it all together, but that's how my research came to be.
Oh,
Beautiful. That's
wow.
cool. That's a neat story. Yeah.
Wow, that is
So
a
let's
good
let's let's let's
story.
jump into that a bit more. So
Yeah.
you in your thesis you introduced the idea that art education can be an avenue for TCKs to explore their identity, to process experiences of loss, to make meaning of their mobile lives. Can you develop on this a bit? Why would visual art education allow for all this? How can it allow for all this?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I think is important is focusing on the way that the visual art is delivered as so I want to make sure that I'm highlighting the fact that I really believe the approach needs to have an inquiry base so that the
Mhm.
art
Yeah.
teacher is providing a space of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then from there, it is art, the process of making art really lends itself to the process of thinking about ourselves. And
that's so
so
Mm.
true.
that's really how it all comes together. So I think about how with the creation of making art and thinking deeply about ourselves, what comes out of it. And what I learned in my study is that the art makers really go through a deep dive and think deeply about what it is that I want to make art about. And what I found in most cases with the third culture kids is they
Mm.
wanted to make art about where they came from or parts of their life that had really big significance as far as their mobile lifestyles go. And
Mm.
Mhm.
I think it's really neat how when we engage in the inquiry cycle, it's open ended, right? And there's no right or wrongs. And I think
Yeah,
it's really
yeah.
neat how third culture kids are really similar just to even that process where there's no right or wrongs and there's so many
Mhm.
different experiences going through the process of mobility. And so
Hmm.
those two cycles really support each other for processing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Mhm.
beautiful. Yeah, that's cool. That's really neat.
That is
Mhm.
really, it goes back to, so how come you selected the 2-year IB program that was brought to you as an idea, right? But then
Mhm.
you decided to concentrate on that, on the official International Baccalaureate, the IB Diploma Program, offered at many international schools, and it's the official visual art course. So why
Mhm.
exactly that program?
Yeah, that program specifically because it is inquiry based, and I really truly believe in that
Okay.
approach for art
Neat.
education. One of the other reasons is because the IB program is globally minded focused, right? And so in their program, they are encouraging students to think think about themselves, to think about open ended questions. So, the idea is that in this program, students are given questions and then given time to think about their personal connections to the
Mhm.
responses that they want to give for those. And it's student centered, right? So, that was my big choosing because of the framework that the IB follows. And not to mention, I mean, it is one of the most well known, and
Mm.
I don't have the citation to say this, but I would be feeling safe to say I bet it's the curriculum that's used the most in the international schools
I would
besides the
assume so,
British
probably.
curriculum.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
And
Mm.
then, also when I was doing my literature review and I started to notice the parallels between the development of inquiry-based education and the development of international schools, the philosophies, they're very connected, right? So they
Mm.
support each
Mm.
other.
Mm.
Hmm. Cool.
Interesting. And then of course it also it's portable because it's an IB program, right? You can do that in Thailand. And then
Hmm.
in a very
Yeah, you're not
similar
tied to a
version, it
specific
might be,
geography.
yeah,
Hmm.
it might be continued
Right.
in New York or wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay, so you basically you needed to find young budding artists in the in the IB program.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so how did you find them? How did you recruit participants? Were these people in the program at the time? Had they
Right.
completed the program or already? Can you tell
Hmm.
us about the makeup of the sample, like in terms of age, gender, countries, etc., of the
Yeah.
kind of sample that you gathered?
Hmm. So, in research world, I used what is called the snowball effect. So I reach
Mhm.
out to one with the hope that they'll, ask, share it with someone else and share it with someone else, and that did end up working for me. So to get the ball rolling, I did think this was interesting because I did post my call for participants on social media with not a lot of interest. But what really helped was my connections with international teachers that I created in my
Hmm.
own international teaching experiences. And
Hmm.
Mhm.
so I reached out to colleagues. So I work as an adjunct professor for the Art of Education University, which is an online program for art teachers who want to get their master's degree or up their step on the pay scale. And
Gotcha.
so one of the teachers had recently been hired, and I remembered seeing in her introduction that she was international. She was in Germany. And so I thought, I'm going to reach
Mm.
out to her, and she really helped a lot. And then beyond that, I had a student who was in one of my AOEU classes who was in by, and she helped me gain a couple. And then from there, I just reached out to other art teachers, and then the students definitely started to tell their friends about it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was
Wonderful.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked.
So that's how it
Yeah.
worked out. And then as far as the demographics of the participants, they ended up being between the ages of 18 and 24, because one of my requirements was that they had to have completed the program within the last 5 years. So
Okay.
everybody that I interviewed had already completed the program, and nobody was in the process of it, which I
Hmm.
think, and I can talk about later on, but it did turn out to be very interesting and a very important part of the research that I gathered,
Mm-hmm.
because they were able to reflect on the experience as a whole instead of being in the middle of the experience, because
Yeah.
it's a challenging program. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that if I would interview them with kind of this focus when they were in the middle of it, I don't
Oh,
think
yeah,
they
it's a
could
lot.
reflect on the
Yeah.
capacity of what it does. So they
Yeah.
were out of it. And actually, I've been thinking of you too again in that last podcast, because you made a comment about not a lot of research for TCKs. And it's true, because
Mm.
once they're over 18, then you need to start to get the parental permissions, and it really
Yeah.
turns into a whole different
Yes.
experience.
Yeah.
So anyways, I ended up with 12 participants, and
Mm-hmm.
they were all female. So I did acknowledge the fact that that could be a need for future research. But yeah, they were
Mm-hmm.
between 18 and 24, and they came from all around the world. I had, let's see, three that had dual citizenship. And then they represented a total of 25 different countries as far as countries they had lived in their
Mm-hmm.
experience. Most of them had lived in about 3 countries
Okay.
during their TCK mobility. And then in the end, I had 8 different schools were represented in the study. So there were
Nice.
a couple of participants who attended the same school, but
Mm-hmm.
only, I think it ended up being 2 is how it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Thanks for going into that. And what about the methodology that you used? How did you
Mhm.
collect the information?
Yep.
Did you get to look at the art pieces? Did you ask participants particular questions? Can you give us a sense what you did?
Yeah, definitely. So I had a form online that if anybody was interested, that's where they got sent, and they would fill that
Mm-hmm.
out, and then that information would come to me to tell me that they were interested, and I would respond with a formal invitation, and it included a link for an online form. Within that form, that's where they signed their consent, and also they uploaded some of the artworks that they
Ah,
made
okay.
in the program. So,
How
Uh-huh.
great that they had it, that they had kept it, right?
yeah, and actually, it's
Yeah.
interesting because it was a requirement to participate, and I did have to tell a couple people that they couldn't participate because they no longer had access to the work that
Yeah.
they created,
Uh,
which really breaks my heart, because
Yeah.
mm,
put in heart and soul, and so not to carry those with them is
yeah.
sad to me. But yeah, so they would upload parts of their process portfolio, their
Mm-hmm.
finished works for the exhibition, and then their artist statement. And so then I had
Okay.
those collected, and I would spend time with those. And then during the interview,
Mm-hmm.
I did ask everybody the same exact questions, unless I needed some clarification or anything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then towards the end of the interview, I would share my screen, and I put their process portfolios in front of them, and we talked about them a little bit that way. And then
Mm,
I had their artworks in front of them and they would talk about them. And then one of my favorite questions was I asked them to choose which one they wanted to talk about. And so then we moved directly to that one and they would tell me more. Yeah.
That's
And so, yeah, we would go through the questions, of course, recorded, and then I would stop recording and we would debrief in the end. And I actually gained some good insights during those times too. And yeah, I would do a follow-up letter. And if there was only one participant that I did have to go back to for some clarifications, but other than that, I had everything I needed. And so, yeah, then I transcribed everything word for word, and that's where I started my data analysis.
That's a long process. I'm guessing you probably spent what, 2 hours for every participant? 3 talking to them in total, probably.
And then transcribing.
Transcribing.
So the average length of the in-person or Zoom was about 45 minutes. I think my shortest was 30 and the longest was an hour and a half. But you're right, there was a lot to organize and get ready for it. And then afterwards, just kind of really devouring what they had sent.
That's the business of research, right? They're opening the gates, the floodgates, and you're like, give it all, give it all. Okay. But then the problem when you do that is that you end up with all this wonderful information, and then you got to do something with it. You got to analyze it. So, and I know that it takes a lot of time. So tell us about, once you have this information, how did you analyze it? What was the basic approach or idea, the way you organize this or analyze this?
Right. Well, one thing that's kind of interesting is through the process of collecting the interviews, I moved myself. So I actually conducted all of the interviews in Montana. And then we moved to Michigan, and we got to Michigan, and we moved into a new house. And so it was, quite I love how everyone calls not a lot of furniture modest these days. So and we had very bare walls. And so I put my data analysis up on the walls, and being a physical person, it was everywhere. And so that's how it went from there. And
how did the rest of the family like that?
So they didn't really love it. And so they would complain about it so much. But then my favorite part was when it came down, they were like, oh, it's so bare in here. I miss it.
Now you're complaining.
It looked like a conspiracy theorist tableau for a while with all the
exactly. And
guys, I think I figured out who killed JFK.
In the living room, and it was way too small. So then I had to take up another really big room.
Wow.
So that's
do you have photos of that?
I do. I can share one with you if you want.
Yes,
I will say that I think my photo of that room really impressed my dissertation committee, because I noticed a few of them in my presentation were like taking pictures of that slide. I was like, I'm nailing it. But it's pretty traditional, because I know that they have digital tools that will allow you to do the process, kind of the same way. But no, I did it physical, like moving the little pieces and just staring at the whole big picture.
I'm sure they still remember you. We had this lady once.
Totally.
And in the end, what were you looking? Were you looking for like things in common, themes that emerges?
Right.
What were you looking for?
What I did is I had 3 sub-questions. So these were big questions that I wanted to answer that I didn't ask my participants directly. And so what I did is, after I had done all of the interviews, I made separate documents for each of these 3 sub-questions. And well, what I did is I took like question number 1 that I asked every single participant, and then I moved all of the responses. So I had question number 1 and then all 12 responses. Question number 2, all 12 responses. And so then when I had done that, I did a copy of all of them for each sub question. From there, I took the sub question and I actually put it right in front of me on my computer. So all I could see was the sub question. And then I went through every response with the highlighter. And if it seemed like the response addressed the question, then I highlighted it.
Wow.
So I did that for all 3, and then I cut them all out. And then what I did from there is I just lift one up and I looked at what it said. And to begin, first one went on the wall, and then from there, next one. And then if the third one kind of had a relationship to the second one, it went there. And I actually had to have a call with my advisor because I was like, I don't know where this is going. This seems crazy.
I don't have any
I got all these strips of paper.
No more walls left.
And he was like, just trust the process, Jemina. It's gonna happen.
It feels very organic, right? It feels like a very organic process.
It sounds like another art project. Jeez.
It feels, kind of.
Yeah,
it does. And actually, I do talk about how art and an inquiry approach to art education, it's so similar to research. It really is.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Research is very creative.
Yeah. So, but then the themes started to emerge, and I just kept moving things around until it started to make sense. And then I did, take it off the walls, and I turned it into a mind map on the computer. So, the center and stemmed out from there, and that just helps me keep bringing it down.
Yeah.
So that was the overarching pattern that you called personal connections in the end, right? That was the mind map?
Sort of. What I noticed is when I created the mind map, as I did the data analysis, I started to identify 3 specific themes, but there was an umbrella theme, and that was personal connection. And what I realized is that there was just no way to take the personal connection out of any of the themes or the descriptions or the process. I mean,
it just saturated everything, right?
Yeah.
Right. And wouldn't you expect that with art, I guess, if you're making art? You would expect there'd be some sort of personal connection, right?
Right. Although that kind of loops back to one of the reasons that I really preach inquiry, because there are other approaches to art education that aren't based on that, and we call that teacher-led. And so what happens is really that approach to art education produces beautiful images that a lot of administrators like to see on the wall, but there is no personal connection.
There's less meaning.
Actually, I've been working with some art teachers right now as they develop their master's thesis, and one of them has made a comment, and she's trying to fix her problem is when she has exhibitions, the students can't identify which works of art are theirs because they nature-led approach. And so right there, that's just an example of how we can do art education without personal connections.
But still, personal connection emerged in your case as kind of saturated throughout. But then you mentioned in the thesis that there was a way there were other patterns that came out kind of like that subdivided from personal connection. And in fact, you mentioned 3 broad themes. So let's take them one at a time. The first one was childhood memories. So please tell us about a little bit about this.
So very interestingly enough, 11 out of the 12 participants made artwork specifically about their childhood memories. And that I find fascinating. And so they were thinking very deeply about their experiences. And what was really neat hearing from them, and just, kind of as I analyze this, is like for one participant, the process of going through and thinking deeply about her childhood memories allowed her to change her negative perspective of her mobile lifestyle to a positive perspective. And so I thought, wow, that's amazing. That's the power of art education. But yeah, I mean, their artworks, I describe them sometimes as roadmaps of their multicultural lifestyles, because many of the artworks did include places that they'd lived or memories that they'd had. So yes, that was one of the themes that definitely came through.
Nice. Yeah.
And then the second theme is called visual representations of structured memories.
Yes.
How is that different from the first one, and what is that one about?
Right. So, in a way, they're similar because they are both about memories. The difference is that the representations tended to be like specific things. So what really came out were flowers and architecture. Doors was a popular representation of place, and then also some memorabilia. And so it is thinking about a childhood memory, but also it's becoming very aware of the specific objects that were in their life. One of my favorite examples was the artwork was a sort of 1980s style boombox, and the artist had created it out of cardboard. And so that would be an example of, the representation. And she chose that because she remembered it being in her parents' garage when she was growing up. And so she wanted to recreate that. And she described that piece as kind of a homage to her parents' experience growing up, which was very different than her own.
Yeah, with the boombox. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to carry those on our shoulders.
What do you mean? What do you mean we?
Well, no, I mean me.
I'm not including myself there.
Yeah.
Mathieu did this, everyone.
I did this,
Please
folks.
picture him. Please picture him like this.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too, because she talked about the boombox and how it had actually, she talked about how it was broken, and then that she had to have like a golf tee, I think is what she said, to move it. But now that we're talking out loud, I mean, honestly, I wonder if she even ever listened, really. She probably just had an iPod or whatever. But yeah, that's what I meant. And so they're very connected. And again, you can see through two examples how the personal connection can't be eliminated.
What I also found fascinating about the visuals of the art pieces that you included in your thesis is the different materials that were used.
Yes.
Right? The creativity that the students showed. Amazing.
Yeah, and actually, that's really neat that you did notice that, and that's one thing that makes inquiry and IB really work well, because typically in the program, so it's a 2-year program that the students go through, and in the first year they really do a lot of experimentation. And so most of the art teachers will that first year have them explore a variety of different mediums so that they
Mm-hmm.
can find a personal relationship to the one that they want to
Mm,
use and deeply develop skills in for that final exhibition.
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
And can I just ask this visual IB arts program
Mhm.
was it mandatory or was it one
Optional kind of?
you optional?
Yeah, no,
How did
that's
that
a
work?
great question. So they do choose to take IB, visual art, as an IB course. And I
Okay.
would have to super double check. I think there's five like kind of core courses that they take, and then they can choose sort of like electives beyond that, with visual arts being one, music
Mm.
might be one. Maybe graphic design might be one. Now, one thing that is really important for me to add into our conversation is that most of the research that I did for the
Mm.
IB occurred, up until last year. And then this year, well, kind of last year in the spring, they launched it. And this year, they have a new curriculum that's a little bit different than the framework that I'm using. And one of
Interesting.
the biggest differences is they have taken out the exhibition at the end of the
Oh.
student's experience. And
Mm.
I personally, um, I don't support that very much. I believe that the
Mm.
culminating event that comes at the end of the 2 years is incredibly important. And
Yeah.
Mm.
so, um, one of my recommendations and one of my thinkings right now is how can we still support that need for those students? But I can jump down
Mm.
Yeah.
into that, get more
Very
to
Mm.
the
interesting.
Yeah.
recommendations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If we come back to the results, so you mentioned what you were seeing personal connection, but it was more than that. So you were seeing a lot of childhood memories. You were seeing a lot of stuff that could be understood as visual representations of structured memories, the boombox, the doors, the balconies. But you also had a third sub-theme that you noticed, which you called insights discovered through the learning journey.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what was all that about?
So that really was, what emerged out of the students' experience and what
Mm.
they were able to learn about themselves and what they took away. And it's remarkable. It's amazing. It warms my heart so much. They gained so much confidence through the whole entire process. That was one of the big ones for me. So, for example, there was one participant who made a comment that the program taught her that she could communicate without words. And until she had
Oh,
come into
Mm.
the IB program, she said she'd always been very shy. She didn't really like, standing up and speaking in front of a group. And she really appreciated what she got out of IB, which was an opportunity to express herself without having to
Mm.
stand in
without
front of
words.
a group. So her
Yeah,
art
Mm.
did the speaking
the
for her.
talking.
I
Yeah.
thought that
Mm.
was really
Mm.
um, another insight that I thought was incredibly interesting was one of the participants describing how much she appreciated the stability of the IB program because it
Yeah.
grounded her and like balanced out the instability of her life. And so she
Mm.
made a comment about how much she appreciated having her art class to go and to help ground and have that stability. So I thought that one
Mm.
was great. Another student made a comment about how therapeutic the experience was for her, and she was just so thankful for the opportunity to have art. So Yeah, that theme is definitely the, kind of like the product that comes out of the
Yeah.
experience of being in this program.
Mm,
Hmm.
mm.
Do you have a sense in which are there some young ladies in the sample that actually went on to or continued making art or went on to explore art? Do you know that or?
Yeah, that's a great question. A couple of them did, and
Mm.
actually one of my favorite examples is the participant who I was just talking about who learned that she could communicate through art. So her
Yes.
story was really neat. She made so her final exhibition included, among other things, she made large posters that were representative of baseball cards. So when she was growing up,
Oh,
her dad collected
Oh,
baseball cards, and
wow.
mm,
she wanted to connect to her dad and collect baseball cards too. But when she went to start her collection, she felt disconnected because there were no female players. And so
Right.
for her exhibition, she thought, I'm going to create cards for the female players. And she did. And she was very excited to tell me that her school had kept them and they're still on the wall. And so they're still there.
Oh,
But she was,
oh,
yeah, she was in university and she did talk about how her artwork at the time was an extension of that. So,
mm,
beautiful.
yes. Hmm.
Beautiful.
that's
Cool.
Great.
wonderful. That's really cool. Yeah. So, what do you think? What implications does your study have, and what recommendations
Hmm.
does it suggest for TCKs, schools,
Right.
educators, art education?
Hmm.
And what I mentioned before, because my question was like, is it an elective in an IB program? Because it almost sounds to me like that it should be a must,
Right. I know.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a few things for me. I think a huge important piece of this is educating kind of everyone on the importance of the process that an art maker goes through and
Mm, mm,
recognizing that we really need to stop worrying about that final product.
yeah.
And
Mm.
in my literature review, I do talk about the history of art education and how we went from, or how the product became elevated and where we kind of lost track of the importance of the process. And then it was in the
Process.
early
Yeah.
1900s that people started to recognize the importance of that process again. So, anyways, we have to help educators understand that it's not the product. And I think we have to help students understand that too, because
Yeah.
I'm with you. I agree. I think art education should be a part of every third culture kid's experience.
Mm,
Really, I
mm,
think it should be a part of everyone's experience.
yeah.
But I do think that my findings validate the fact that everyone should go through this art making experience every TCK so that they're invited to have an opportunity to process their experience.
Mm, mm,
And I am interested to know, and this is kind of, like recommendation for the future, is whether or not third culture kids have an opportunity to process their
yeah.
multicultural upbringing in other subjects outside of art. And I'm not sure that
Mhm.
they do. I would
Yeah.
kind of be surprised if
Outside of therapy.
yeah, right. So
Mm,
I mean, I,
Yeah.
I really think that every counselor inside an international school should be recommending an art
yeah.
course for their third
Yeah.
culture kids. And it doesn't have to be the 2 years. I think that, and this is also for further study, is that, what is the length of time that an art class needs to
Mm,
be for this process of
yeah.
processing to take place. And so
Yeah.
that
You're
would
right,
be
right.
something to study into the future. Mostly, I think it could be done in a semester if it was done in the right way with the right questions, but
Mm.
without the heavy focus of a large body of work at the end.
Yeah,
But if they
yeah.
just were,
Yeah.
invited to think about questions and think about where they come from, and then just put their response on paper or whatever medium, somehow.
Mm.
So I do think that art should be a part of everybody's experience
Yeah.
100%. And also just really helping everyone understand that art isn't about the product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about the
Yeah.
process.
Hmm.
It's also
Maybe
interesting to me. I
that,
just, oh, go ahead, Andrea. Go ahead.
no, I want to say maybe that's why they took away the exposition at the end of the course.
Yeah, that could be
Oh,
a,
could that be the argument that it makes it about
I
the
think,
product at
yeah,
the
I
end?
think it could be,
Mm.
yeah, it
but
might
that's
be.
that's twofold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, I think the hard part for me about not having it is because I learned from my study the amount of pride that comes out
Mm.
of the process.
Yes,
And a
yes,
huge piece of that is showing off those works of art
right,
at the end.
Yeah.
right.
And
That
so,
social bit. Yeah,
right. And,
Yeah.
and actually, they do still have to create that body of work. But
Yeah.
now with the new program, they just don't have to put it on the walls. And I think
Mm.
that's a bit of a disservice. But
mm-hmm,
Mm.
mm-hmm. It
Especially
occurs to me
for people
also,
who would, no, go ahead.
oh, so it occurs to me also that we've been talking about visual art,
yes.
Yeah.
as opposed to somebody who would like to write a song or
Yeah.
create dance or so there's all sorts of questions, aren't there, in terms of
Mhm.
Mm.
that's really fascinating. Yeah. Sorry, Andrea, you wanted to add something
I
there?
forgot. It's
You
okay.
forgot. Okay, so let's talk about so you mentioned one possible next step, which is a study looking at what is the, let's call it, the minimal necessary length of time that a program would
Mhm.
have to run in order to get some of these benefits. And that's an interesting question in itself. Uh, can you think of other possible next steps? Like if I gave you tons of free time and funding
Mhm.
and a huge wall so you can basically
No, walls.
That's a huge
Walls.
wall.
walls.
Walls.
What
More than
what do
one,
you do?
please.
What do you do with all these resources and these
Yeah.
walls? What's the next step?
I would say the two big ones for me would be adding in male voices so that
Yeah.
I didn't have only females in
Mm,
in
mm.
my study. So I would like to look at that. And the other one, I'm very interested in seeing whether or not monocultural kids
Yeah.
create artworks in the IB program that are so much influenced by their childhood memories. And
Ah,
that
gotcha.
I would like to do a comparison of that. And because part of me wonders, is that just the age? Is that the developmental level that they're at, where they are
Mm,
making the transition out of adolescence and they're thinking about
mm.
the, oh, you're gonna like this word, Matthew, nostalgia, right? So like,
Right, the
does
nostalgia. Yeah,
yeah, does
yeah.
every
Or,
16-year-old find nostalgia in, through
mm,
the experience and thinking about their childhood memories? Or
yeah.
do the
Yeah.
monocultural kids tend to make artworks that are not as connected to their childhood? So that's my other big.
What would be your hunch? Because I can say that I would think, like, to me, nostalgia hits you in your 30s and 40s, not at 15 saying, "Oh, the good old days when I was like 9." But that's my hunch.
Yeah.
What is you guys' hunch, Jamina? Why don't you start?
Yeah, I do think that there is a difference. I think the
Yeah.
themes would probably be quite different, and I
Hmm.
wonder if monocultural students do really need to digest their experiences in the same way, and I lean to think probably not. And part of that is, like I can picture myself and growing up, I have one home to think about, right, to get nostalgic about, whereas my children, they have like eight.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Right.
I can more easily process that experience than they can
Yeah,
or
they need
will.
a whole nostalgia schedule to get through the 8 homes. What do you think, Andrea? Do you think people at 15 would be nostalgic about their past?
I don't know. I think it depends on how much transition or other change or impactful
Yeah,
mm, things happen in their lives.
yeah,
Hmm.
But I think it would be very interesting if you have the inquiry-led art program. You let the monoculture and the multicultural kids do their thing, and then you
yeah,
compare, and then you get them to talk.
Yeah.
right. That would
I
be
think
interesting.
that would be interesting.
Hmm.
Right, right, right. And for listeners, just to make sure, I think when we say the term monocultural, we basically mean a person who basically grew up in one place, and because
Mm-hmm.
some of these people might be bicultural even though they grew up in one place because they might have two parents of the same culture. It gets
Right.
complicated, but I think we
Hmm.
see what we mean, right? We're talking about the
Yeah.
prototypical third culture kid versus the prototypical, kid who
Yes.
grew up in one place. I'd be also interested in whether witnessing somebody making art, and whether just witnessing it can trigger your own processing. Do you see what I mean? Like if a T,
Yeah.
if a TCK
Of
went to give a
course.
talk to other TCKs about their work,
Hmm.
that might lead others to kind of vicariously start to process, and I'd be
Yeah.
interested in seeing, how much that spills over onto other people. Do you need to be the one
Mm.
to make it, or can that
Right.
effect kind of spill over a little bit onto
Well,
others?
I will say that an interesting piece about the IB program is that part of it includes a comparative study where the students do need to look at other artists' artworks. And
Mm-hmm. Okay.
through that, a lot of the students did, like one in particular acknowledged that the artists she was looking at were making art about where they were from, and that invited her and validated her desire to do that and helped her think, okay,
Mm.
this is okay to do.
Yeah.
um And I also wanted to say, kind of off of that, it was interesting. A couple of the students specifically talked about their experiences in museums and how their
Oh.
experience visiting museums directly influenced the
Oh yeah,
production of the artworks
of
that
their
they
art.
made. Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and a museum gives you this art boost anyhow, right? I
Yeah.
think. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
always come out
the
of a
house of
museum like, where
creativity.
can I get my next canvas?
Yeah.
That's right,
Yeah.
because I just learned a few days ago that Andrea is a painter. I didn't even know
Yeah,
this. After a year
yeah.
of podcasts, I didn't even know this.
And
But
I'm
Andrea, I
and
have
I'm
one
like,
more question.
here
I
we
have one more
go.
question that's not on the list, but you have to
Okay,
let me
oh
ask it.
my gosh.
Jemina, you well know that researchers are human and are not separated from what they study. And although we try to, well, there's different approaches, but one of them is to try to be kind of objective and not influence things too much. But I want to ask you, as a mom of TCKs, as somebody who was an expat, as an artist, as a professor, teacher, a professor of art, how did this research impact you?
Good question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that is a good question. I think I think it really did validate for me that the process one goes through when developing a body of work it feels it feels vital to me. It feels
Mm.
incredibly important, and I feel bad for people who aren't given that opportunity. Um, yeah, I don't know, in so many ways.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, I just I mean, and for my own children, so that's kind to link it personally to me,
Yes,
because I'm
yes,
an art teacher and I am an artist. I'm always dragging my children to, when they were younger, make art with me. They go
right.
to all of the museums with me, and
Yeah,
they're arted up, right? And
there
so
are
they're
the
my daughter, she's like, I'm so bored. I was like, oh, you help with me, like
Ooh.
little creatures for how no, I've already done that, Mom. And I've like arted them out so much. Um I'm hoping that they will take art class in their
Right,
careers, because I'm
Mm.
having a little bit of a hard time getting them to want to sign up for art. And I'm thinking,
right.
wait, you can't miss out on this like you need it. You need to
Yeah,
do this to process. And maybe they have, because I'm attuned to it and I encourage it and that sort of thing. But yeah, I would say the need for my children to make
right.
art, everybody to make art for sure.
Yeah.
And one
Mhm.
other thing, and I kind of talked to this earlier, but also just the need to eliminate this stigma of making art. So I'm gonna talk about Ruth for just a second, because I
Ruth Van
smile.
Recken. Mhm.
Yeah, because she attended one of my presentations where we made art, and a couple of times she
Oh.
made comments about not being an artist and not
Right.
her. and
Oh.
and I
Yeah.
think I just wish that I could help everyone just understand that we can all enjoy the experience, and that's what it should be. It should be like
Yeah.
fun and joy, and that's one awesome thing about art, is it's like fun to go to art class because you get
Mhm.
to, like, I don't know, it feels good. So I just would love
Mm.
to push people who were like, oh no, I can't draw a stick figure, like
Yeah.
pass that a little bit and just do it. So actually I have put in a proposal for the FIGT forum, and
Oh,
if
Oh.
I'm
great.
accepted, it will include an art making experience. And
Oh,
I'm really
yes.
hopeful that those in the research community of FIGT will come and have that experience, and hopefully see that it's not about the product. Like, in the
Mm.
end, and what's cool about what I will do, it is, in the end, no matter what it looks like, everyone loves talking about what they make. And that
That's
makes
true.
my
Yeah.
happy, no matter
Very
what it
cool.
is.
That's
Right. And for
true.
listeners,
That's true.
FIGT refers to Families in Global Transition, which you should definitely check out. They are an enormous networks of adult third culture kids,
Hmm.
expats, and so on. So do check them out. I
Yeah.
think FIGT.org is
Yeah.
Yes.
It's .org. And the
their
forum Jemina
page,
is talking about is the online conference that's going to
an
happen
online
next April.
conference.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. Well, well,
Wonderful.
well.
Wonderful.
You want to
Oh,
close us out,
one
Daniel?
question. No, yeah,
Yeah.
I have one
Yeah.
more question as well. I one
Yeah.
more
Go,
question
go.
that was not on our list of 12 questions. How long did it take you to write your because Matthew just asked you how did it impact you, and I assume it was with you for a long time, this whole project.
The whole
It
PhD, the whole
was.
project.
So it took me 9 years to finish
Wow.
my doctorate degree. I started
Wow.
in 2016 and I
Hmm.
finished in 2025.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and but There was a lot of parts in there. I moved to Bangkok. I moved to New York.
Mm-hmm.
COVID hit, so there were just some biggies
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of happened. But from writing until the end, I would say it took pretty much a year and a half. I got
Oh, okay.
serious in January of 2023, and then I collected, I had to get the approval and collected in
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2024, and then I put it all together last winter. So I presented in April, May. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask because because of Matthew's question, like, how did it impact you? So it was
Yeah.
with you,
Yeah.
it traveled with you, the whole
It traveled
project
with
traveled
Yeah.
you.
with you.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
now I'll share one big impact was I ended up getting my tattoos as
Oh,
like
yes.
kind of sunny, but I when I don't have any tattoos
Uh-huh.
besides this, but these are my 3 gold stars that like I
Mm.
look down and I'm like, yes, I did that. So it impacted my physical appearance too, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, of
How
course.
cool. What a
On
fitting
days
way
when you
to, yeah.
doubt, you just have to look at your
You
art.
just look, oh, yes, I did
Exactly.
this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
great.
my
Thank you
goodness.
so much for sharing your research and your personal story with us. This was a great interview. Like we
Indeed.
always say, and we shared that last
Right?
time, right? This was the best one yet.
Well, I mean, it's always like
We
that.
always say it. We always say it. It's so interesting because we're
They're all wonderful.
endlessly fascinated with our researchers.
It's just that right now we're really into Jemina's research.
Right,
Yeah,
You
right,
know?
right.
So
it's
every
like
time it's like the
every
best.
time it's the best, exactly. Every
Yeah.
time it's the best. Yeah.
It's
All
fun
right.
to
Thank you
talk
so
about.
much.
You bet. All right.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody. See you next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of the TCK Research Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Please subscribe, like, and share our podcast and leave us a review. It really helps others find us. If you have any questions or comments, please write to us at tckresearchpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we promise we'll answer all emails. We wish you a good day wherever you are, and we hope you'll join us again for the next episode.